I've just sat here for like 10 minutes trying to figure out the angle, the quality, all that, but I'm trying to get past like what the videos look like and just getting content out for you guys. If you guys are new here, thank you so much for being here, clicking on this video, deciding to support me. My name is liyahwdalocs, for those of you who have never seen my face before, and for those of you who are returning, thank you so much for coming back. I appreciate you and I love you. Before we get into the video, I just wanted to say that I finally gave in. I folded and I made a TikTok. The link will be in the description box below. Please, you guys have been like nagging me to make a TikTok for literally a year, probably over a year, and I finally made one. So go ahead and follow that, support me on there. But without further ado, we're gonna get right into the video. As you guys can tell from the title of the video, we are going to be talking about a very well-known, very controversial author, and that is Colleen Hoover. Now, if you are a co-host stan, I strongly suggest that you don't watch this video because I am a Colleen Hoover. I don't hate her. I don't think that her writing is terrible. I just think that she has a very weird way about going about her stories. So the first book we're gonna talk about is the first book that I actually read by her, which is Reminders of Him. This book caught my eye while I was walking in Target, and I had also heard of Colleen Hoover before. Bookstagram was kind of just starting to become a thing on my Explore page. Did you call my name? Okay, like I was saying, Bookstagram was like just becoming a thing on my Explore page, and if there was one author that I was seeing a lot of, it was Colleen Hoover. And so when I saw this book, I was already reading a book before that. I was reading Watering the Soul by Courtney Peppernell or something like that. It was a poetry book, so it wasn't like a fictional book or anything like that. If anything, poetry is just poetry. Like, is that like its own genre? I don't know. Yeah, I read that book before and I was kind of just like in a reading mood and I wanted to read another book. Excuse me. So I bought this book and it did take me a while to finish, I'm not gonna lie. So it's not something that I was like warped in. I don't even know if that's a word. I did enjoy the book, I'm not gonna lie. I am going to say that this was a good book. It wasn't until further down the line that my view on her kind of was like, eh. One thing I will say about this book is that the end of it was super fast, and I was not a fan of that. I felt like I didn't really have time to connect with what was going on, and so I didn't really feel the way I should have felt while I was reading the end of that book. Now, there's some people that are like, oh my god, I absolutely love this, it brought tears to my eyes, da da da. I don't know, I guess you just gotta try a little harder when it comes to me, because if you've read the book, you know what I mean. If you haven't, then just know that the end of it is like super, I feel like the entire story is one thing happening, and then the end of the book is just like boom, 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 and it's like, holy whoa. Now, for those of you who still want to read the book, skip ahead to the time that is on the screen. I'm going to talk about some spoilers real quick for the people who have already read the book. Okay, they should be gone now. Like I was saying, the end of the book kind of took me like, whoa. I felt like the entire book was just, her name's Kenna, right? The entire book was just Kenna and Ledger? I've never said his name out loud. The entire book was just Kenna and Ledger kind of having this like forbidden romance, and I would say the only reason I wasn't a fan of it, that's what the entire book was. If you read the synopsis to this book, I feel like you're going to expect one thing going into it and not really expect it to just be an entire romance book, even though this is a romance book. But the synopsis kind of gives you the impression that she's doing what she needs to do to right her wrongs and get back into her daughter's life, or not back into her daughter's life because she never met her daughter. But yeah, that's what I was under the impression of. And then like halfway through the book, I was like, wait, she really hasn't done anything besides like continue to have sex with this guy because that's her easiest way into her daughter's life. So I thought that was kind of weird, but I mean, you know, it is what it is. I still thought that it was a really cute story. The next book that I read by her is It Ends With Us. This is one of her most popular books, and I believe that there's a movie coming out this year, actually. So that's exciting, I guess. Actually, it's not exciting at all, I'm not gonna lie. What I will say is that when I initially read this book, I thought that it was good. It kept me engaged, and the only thing that made me think like, yes, this was a W book was the end of the book. I liked how it ended. But this was one of those books that the more that I sat on it and the longer that I had to think about the story, I hated it. Before I say anything about the book, I want to give a shout out to a Clockwork Reader. I will put the link in the description box below to the video that she posted about Colleen Hoover's 5 most popular books. She goes into a lot more detail than I am in this video, so I definitely think that you guys should seriously like read that video. Watch that video. When I was watching a Clockwork Reader's, I need to stop saying that, her name is Hannah. When I was watching Hannah's video, she was saying how this book is falsely advertised as a romance, and I was like, holy shit. I immediately knew what she meant, because this book should not be, what is that word? Promoted as a romance book. It is literally just a story about domestic abuse. That is it. It is a story of a girl named, what is her name? I forgot. Oh, no way I forgot her name. Her name is Lily Blossom Bloom. It is a book that follows Lily and Ryle. They're in a relationship. Everything is all fun and games in the beginning. That's how it usually starts. And then he turns out to be an abusive man. Physically, mentally, emotionally. Like, he's all of that. He's all of the above. So that is literally what this book is about. It's not... I mean, it does go back and forth between past tense and present tense. It does go back and forth between the past and present. And in the past, we do learn about a relationship that she was in high school with somebody named Atlas. And that is the only romance aspect of the book, but it is not the main point of the book. So I don't think that it should be categorized as a romance book. The second thing is that because of the fact that it is promoted as a romance book, I feel like it completely, romanticizes abusive relationships. Because even in the end of the book, obviously I'm not spoiling anything for you guys, because this is, I mean, I really genuinely don't think that you should read this book anyways. At the end of the book, we see a few times where like Ryle is flirting with her and and she kind of just like brushes it off her shoulder. And there are people apparently on TikTok. I just recently got on TikTok, so I never saw this video. Well, I did see it, but it was on YouTube. But somebody had posted a video saying that they basically thought that Ryle should have been given a second chance. And I honestly think that the only reason that people have that mentality and have that view of Ryle is because Colleen Hoover allowed them space to think that about him. In this book, considering what he did, I feel like he should have been a lot more remorseful when it came to Lily, and that redemption was not nothing. I don't think that her message was executed the right way, just because of the simple fact that people still are misled with the outcome of the book. Yeah, overall, I don't think that you guys should read this book. I genuinely think this book is so bad and misleading and abusive. Literally. The next book that I read by Coho is Verity. This is another well, all of these videos are super popular. This book, I'm gonna say, is the first book that I read and that literally had me like, what the fuck? And at first it was a good thing. Then I read more books by different authors and I realized how bad this book actually is. And not only how bad it is, but how weird it is. Now, the next book, honestly, if I could save this one for last, I genuinely would. Let's talk about, I hate this book. This book, it wasn't until I read Ugly Love that I decided that I do not like Colleen Hoover. The only thing I knew about this book was that it was really good. The reviews I heard about this book were so fucking misleading. I honestly probably only heard from like 1 or 2 people the truth about this book. Everybody else just absolutely loved it, which I guess is not a lie because, you know, to each his own. We're not the same people. A book that you may love, I obviously hated. So going into the book, I was super excited. I will say that because, like I said, with her other books, they weren't, well, it wasn't until later on that I started to feel, you know, some indifferences about her other books. But I still didn't have like a terrible taste in my mouth about Colleen Hoover. So I think I did read the synopsis to this book before I read it, but I don't think that I like fully processed. I don't think I fully processed what it was truly going to be about, because the synopsis definitely is clear, telling you that this is a book about friends with benefits. But again, going back to the promoting things as a romance book, I don't think that this should have been categorized as romance. The reason that I say that is because when she says that this book is strictly friends with benefits, it is strictly friends with benefits. There is nothing romantic about that. There's some people who might like reading about things like that. Now, honestly, if the main character, the guy, his name is Miles, if Miles wasn't such a narcissist, I may have liked it a little bit. But he was very, very manipulative, and I definitely think that manipulation is a form of mental and emotional abuse. So again, here she is in another book romanticizing abusive relationships. And then this is another book that goes between the past and the present. And the past, we learn about a relationship between him and his stepsister. So that is where the romance aspect comes into it. We're learning about this relationship between him and his stepsister, that we eventually figure out why he is the way that he is, and why he treats, what is the girl's name? Tate, I think, yeah. Why he treats Tate the way that he treats her, which, like I said, is abusive. Another thing that was probably the first thing that I did not like about the book was how much respect they don't have for themselves or each other. It was just very hard to read at times, to listen to this girl acknowledge how badly she's being treated by this man, and to see her do something else. And it's just like, girl, like, you're literally telling us one thing and doing another. And I wasn't a fan of it. I really didn't like that. There was nothing entertaining about this book. I did not enjoy myself. 0 out of 10, would not recommend. The next book that I have is November 9. That book I don't physically have with me right now because I'm letting one of my friends borrow it. That is another book that I will say that when I finished it, or as I was reading it, I was a fan. I did like it, okay? But there were things here and there that kind of completely threw me off, and by the time I finished the book, I was not a fan. I absolutely hated it. The very first thing that I hated about that book was how she was only validating herself and kind of allowing herself to feel good or pretty because of this boy. She's a burn victim and has scars, like 3rd-degree burn scars on like half of her body, literally. So she's super insecure and super just unsure about herself, I guess you can say. And then she meets this guy who validates her in crazy, very inappropriate ways, considering they met each other a couple hours before this. But all of a sudden she is just feeling so pretty and feeling so confident and feeling so beautiful because he is giving her that validation. So I thought that was weird. And then, like I said, they had just met couple hours, and then he was in her house helping her pack and like undressing her and freaking fingering her scars. Yeah, it was super uncomfortable to read. There is another thing. Oh, I was about to pick the book up, but I don't have the book with me. The next thing that kind of ticked me off about that book was that Tate and Miles from Ugly Love do make an appearance in that book, and nobody really talks about how much of a spoiler it is. They are pregnant. Tate is pregnant with Miles' baby, and that kind of just completely pissed me off because the end of Ugly Love gives us an ending but doesn't really give us an ending. And so when we see them come in November 9, it kind of gives us that confirmation of what happened after the fact. And they made a fucking baby. So, you know, there's that. That's cool. And then there's other things that I feel like I definitely should have wrote the things down that were kind of like irking me as I was reading the book, because I can't think of all of them off the top of my head. But what made me absolutely hate this book was the plot twist. So a lot of people say that the only thing that makes November 9 worth reading is the plot twist. Now, when I read the plot twist, I would definitely say that I was not expecting it. There are some people that say that it was kind of like you could see it coming. He was the one who caused the fire, where her entire body, well, not entire body, but half of her body was burned and permanently scarred. It was his fault. And he did it because his mom killed herself and he was the one who found her. She didn't leave it, or she did leave a note, but he didn't read it. And he just assumed that the reason she killed herself was because of a guy that she was dating. The guy that was dating Ben's mom happened to be Fallon's dad. So he found out where Fallon lived, pulled up to his house, accidentally set his house on fire.
Let me clarify that for y'all real quick. He did not accidentally set his house on fire. He meant to set his car on fire because the car means a lot to the dad. And that's what he meant to do. But he accidentally set the house on fire. So he like accidentally on purpose set his house on fire.
And that was that. And then a few years later, he coincidentally ends up in the same place as Fallon's dad. And then he follows the dad to a restaurant where Fallon is meeting him. And so he gets to see Fallon for the first time and like getting to see what he did to her, basically. And yeah, the story just kind of goes from there. But yeah, so once we learn all of this, you know, obviously it's like, okay, well, she's gonna figure this out. And it's like, how can there possibly be a happy ending here? There's a happy ending because she fucking forgives him.
Okay, one more moment of clarification. They dated for 5 years. Granted, there was like a plot behind it. You know, they didn't see each other every day for 5 years. They saw each other literally 5 times within 5 years. But it wasn't until those 5 years that she found out that he was the reason for the fire. So, yeah. And she still forgave that nigga.
There's even a point in the book where Colleen Hoover goes as far as to allow the mom of Fallon, the mom, meaning like if this was me, like, and I was in a fire and half of my body was burned, that means that my mom is talking to me right now, telling me that I should forgive this guy, even though we both just read this paper, because he writes this all in a story, right, that he's writing and whatever. So we're reading this and we're reading the same thing and seeing that he just admitted to doing this to me out of pure immaturity. And you're telling me to forgive him? Like, I don't know, that threw me off. The fact that they really did just end the story in like a happily ever after type of thing, it just completely threw me off. And I was like, yeah, this is so fucking bad. Those are the 5 most popular books that I read by Colleen Hoover. I also read It Starts With Us. I don't really have much to say about that book. It's not a bad book, but I just don't think that it was a necessary book. It's kind of just like a super long epilogue. And then the only other book that I have by Colleen Hoover is Regretting You. I haven't read it. I haven't heard amazing things about that book, but I think I'm gonna give it a chance just because it's on my shelf and I don't like having books on my shelf that go unread. So I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that you are enjoying my booktube videos and that you guys have found a hobby as well. Yeah, make sure that you guys are following me on Instagram, make sure that you're following me on TikTok, and make sure that you are subscribed to this channel so that you can stay tuned for, so that you can be in the loop for all the videos that I post every single week. So yeah, my outros are still super bad, so I'll see y'all in the next video.